I'm not going to read my whole paper, and I do not have PowerPoint slides prepared, but I will just highlight the main issues of my paper. For any transformative leadership development to take place, there is a need for the reconstruction of the old system that continues to suppress the oppressed, the inferior, and the minority. South Africa continues to experience the struggles of unequal treatment based on skin color, class, and gender. By referring to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 1, which is poverty, Goal 2, no hunger, Goal 5, gender equality, and Goal 10, reduced inequality, it is evident that there is a need for the society to be treated equally, for patriarchy to fade, and for fairness in public spaces, regardless of gender and class. South Africa was declared a democratic country since 1994 after experiencing an era of apartheid. One of the key concepts of democracy was to strike a balance between the privileged and the less privileged, the blacks and the whites, and it was to create a balanced and inclusive environment where there is a greater equality for all. Given the history of apartheid in South Africa, the implemented democratic system still seems to be a list of Bill of Rights that is only relevant on paper but not practical in reality. It continues to be a myth because the inferior, that is the blacks and the women, continues to suffer the effects of the apartheid system. Public institutions continues to favor the privileged at the expense of the less privileged, and there continues to be unequal access to resources, the imbalanced status quo in public institutions, and the privileged race and class exercise power to their advantage. The poor are still marginalized and denied access to socio-economic resources. Now, the triple challenge of racism, poverty, and unemployment is still a big issue in the country. And when I look at the Stats SA, the unemployment rate is still sitting at 33.9%. This was from the second quarter of this year. The poverty rate is sitting at 56.90%, which is more than half of the population of South Africa. When it comes to racial inequality, South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world where race plays a determining factor in society, where 10% of the population owns more than 80% of its wealth. After 28 years of democracy, that is almost 3 decades in South Africa, race still remains a key driver in equality. In public institutions, it plays a huge role in determining unequal incomes, the privilege of quality education, health, the possession of higher roles in workspaces, and among other things, labor market incomes. In line with these descriptions of experiences of injustices, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs describes the link between poverty and unemployment on the one hand and social injustices on the other hand in terms of the theory of structural poverty as follows. And I quote, while poverty has many dimensions, in its two fundamental aspects are the lack of economic power owing to low incomes and assets, and the lack of socio-political power as reflected in the limited access to social services, opportunities, information, and often the denial of human rights and the practice of discrimination. Now, the theoretical perspective that I saw plausible for this matter is the sociological theory of race and racism, together with liberation, which can be employed in addressing the lived experiences of the marginalized and seeking favorable solutions for the future of humanity. The systemic injustices perpetuated by white supremacy against Black people has led to the emergence of sociological race theories as a movement that challenges the social and the political system within social institutions and social settings. It grew from critical legal studies to be an interdisciplinary implemented in other fields such as education and humanities. Though it has no single definition, it is understood as an approach that aims to deconstruct the unequal racial systemic practices brought by race and power. It holds the idea that race is a social construct that is not rooted in the biological or natural features, but culturally constructed principles where race and white supremacy are vehicles to hegemonize the people of color. This theory holds the assumption that racism takes place in every interaction between people of different skin color, consciously and unconsciously, It defines individuals not by their values and principles, but by their skin color, and it brings about the concept of otherness. Because of time, I'll be skipping through some of the sections. It is of great importance to consider an idealistic way of living where the cultural and biological makeup of humans are not used as tools to justify oppression in our everyday culture and institutions. According to Gilroy, a non-racial planetary humanism is still possible. Such a practice would require the superior to renounce their racial privilege and the inferior group to reject the racial categories inflicted upon them. It is crucial to consider rethinking humanity beyond the categories of race and power structures such as gender and class. And it is worth noting that this concept of racial difference is ambivalent. It is essential for the construction of meaning and social identities. At the same time, it can be used as a tool to subjugate the other. Now, I want to quickly jump to how the change responds to this. This triple challenge of poverty, unemployment, and racial inequality is a challenge to both the church and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Even though there has been a call for the church to be the agency of change, the church is also facing its own challenges that were brought about by different factors, including the recent COVID-19 pandemic. The question of interest here is how does the church attend to struggles of its nations while also facing its own challenges or still recovering from the effects of the global pandemic that exacerbated the mentioned triple challenges? How does the church exercise its transformative agenda while facing a pandemic? In the paradigm of the Missio Dei, Ngobo and Marshall asserts that the church holds the responsibility, or rather is expected to transform and change the world to the glory of God's name and advancement of God's kingdom. And as the church normally refers to the following three scriptures: Proverbs 31 verse 9, which says defend the rights of the poor; Acts 9 verse 36, which is about the disciple that was always doing good and helping the poor; and Proverbs 29 verse 7, which is about the righteous, which talks about the righteous care about justice and the poor. There is a need for the church to go outside of its traditional missional framework of evangelism and salvation of souls and explore tangible solutions that will help humanity to move one step closer towards the 2030 agenda of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals of the elimination of poverty and inequality in South Africa. The church, in alignment with the United Nations, should serve as an agent of transformation, seeking to provide relief where it is needed, but also empowering those in the margins to move to the mainstream society. The church also needs to provide teachings to the poor and the marginalized, provide access to facilities where educational sessions and mentorings of the youth and the less privileged can take place. Partner with NGOs and other organizations that will assist in reducing unemployment, unfair treatment of people, and poverty. And it can do so by using its immediate audience and facilities to attend to the basic needs of humanity, such as providing food when it comes to the issue of poverty. Now, the bias in support of this perspective, it refers to poverty as a human condition whereby religion and its institution have the potential to make a unique contribution to address poverty through the three interrelated functions. Firstly, by going beyond material concerns to focus on spiritual dimensions of human well-being. Secondly, by teaching particular ethical values that would lead to more appropriate responses towards addressing poverty. And thirdly, by playing an active role in alleviating poverty through appropriate actions. Since South Africa is one of the countries faced with this triple challenge of racism, poverty, unemployment, it is crucial for the church to reevaluate its mission and work towards building a liberated society. As an agent of change, I would like to continue by the words of Stephen Debeer, that the church can encourage its members to embrace creative ways of acknowledging its interdependence and complementarity and remodeling economic sharing ways that break from death-dealing hierarchy through cycles of hope. We need to keep in mind that the church is also a public institution where these challenges may be experienced. It is crucial for the church to emphasize its theological foundations for racial understandings and inequalities, to restore human dignity, unite diverse nations, and that is nations that are created in the image of God, into the body of Christ. The church should create a space where people can develop, empower one another, and work towards finding a solution to the shared societal problem. I thank you.
Race, ambivalence, and poverty, a challenge to church in South Africa. She rightly said, South Africa became a democratic country, but then this issue of democratization of space and time is there. It's not the space is not at democratized, time is not at democratized, and so this balance, or many are still denied. Real issues still prevail. It is they are denied of opportunities. They are denied of infrastructures, and so it is not at all democratized. And this issue, church need to tackle the systemic injustice, as is rightly said, and then this aspect of cultural construct. Uh, since this cultural construct is posing so much of problems, should not the church take it very seriously to tackle poverty, this the whole issue arising out of it, the aspect of cultural concern, that is the root cause of all the problems, which gives a different perspective. And since it's Missio Dei, God is interested in it, church need to take up this mission of tackling or confronting the cultural constructs that have evolved over the years, and topple it down, or else this cemented hierarchy will remain, and that will continue to be a challenge to the humanity at large. So do you think the church need to address this aspect of cultural construct to address this issue of poverty, which is rampant everywhere, and so this is one major concern. Yeah, thank you.